Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. The West is in disarray, to put it mildly. And you can note that if you compare their actions, not only their words or statements, their actions to the Russians, Chinese, Indians, the rest of the world. The West seemed to have lost even the minimum objectivity needed in order to solve a problem, which is the so-called Ukraine war, which is started by... Okay, all right, I will tell you later. So what's going on over here? Europe explores demilitarization or demilitarized zone in Ukraine, 40 kilometer. And we're going to find out how they envision to enforce that, what countries' troops will be involved, therefore opening up the, uncovering their own interests. That is, we know who's who, what's what. Obviously, it's going to be the French and the Brits who will deploy it in Ukraine. Now, this is something the Russians already said, niet, but they keep going. They said the same thing, that they will do the same thing without asking the other side. And remember, the other side, as Trump said, has the cards. So this is the first topic that I'm going to look in detail here. So I have two articles. Both of them are from the Ukrainians. And I would read the titles for you because they're tricky. There's different, but it's okay, we're going to get there. Then from the Russians, we have Zelensky, who claims that Ukraine's security guarantees will be ready next week. Did they speak to the Russians about the security guarantees? No. Again, they lost the minimum requirement of objectivity. Not impartiality in this case, but objectivity in looking at an issue and evaluate it in an objective way in order to find solutions. But they have the solutions and they try to put together a narrative based on the solution they would like to provide, not even to the Russians, to the world. Next topic, we have a president of a country in Europe, European Union country and NATO member state, that discloses this thing. Trump is a Russian asset. And he says it publicly. And that is the Portugal's president, just so you know, calls Trump a Russian agent. And then to show you how the Europeans continue being imbeciles and pushing the nuclear button in Russia, is they are thinking of transferring, brace yourselves, 200 billion euros from the Russian robbed. As Putin said, when someone steals from you, you don't see who that is, without you knowing. But this you know, and you know exactly who did it, how much they stole, and so on. This is a robbery. So they continue with the robbery. Remember, the European Union continues its I would say, but not even, a neo-colonial attitude. It still has its attitude of, we're gonna tell everybody how things are ran. Again, they're incapable of self-reflection or inner reflection, introspection. They don't, hey, wait a second, am I still the same guy I was 20 years ago? No, I'm not. So, to think that you are still having it, something that you maybe had a century ago, it's very dangerous, because you will engage in some activities, actions, with the delusion that you are that guy. It's like, let's say, a former world champion in boxing, heavyweight, let's say Mike Tyson, goes and tries to, let's say, challenge Usyk, or I don't know, Tyson Fury, or any active, I don't know if Tyson Fury is still there anymore, but anyway, challenge them because he was, 40 years ago, the greatest, in the world. Now he's not. If he lives with that idea that he's still there, if he gets in a ring with any of the current champions, or, up there, he's gonna get knocked the fuck out. This is the European Union. They say things, they challenge, they step on the Russians' cock so hard at one point they will get smacked. All right, and they try to provide relevance, which they don't have anymore. It's hard, man. It's hard on people who at one point are at the top, and they're at the top, and then they see their value diminish, their power. It's hard to say, well, I'm not that guy anymore. You know, like, I don't know, you are a suave guy, and all of a sudden women don't like you anymore. I mean, you can't just say, well, I'm older, I'm uglier, what the hell, I live with it. It's hard, especially when you're at the top. I'm not talking about people like you or I, you know what I mean? So let's go to the first topic. The buffer zone. New Voice of Ukraine. This is the title, my friends. This is from August 29th. Europe, the entire Europe, when you say Europe, is Europe, explores 40-kilometer demilitarized zone between Ukraine front lines. So 40 kilometers is 30 miles. Now I don't know, if I use a bow, I can make it in 3 shots. I'm just exaggerating, but here it is. That's what they think. Now, who are these guys? Because it's Europe, the entire Europe. I guarantee you Albania was not consulted on this one. Or Serbia, because they are part of Europe, not the European Union. Europe is weighing the creation of a 40-kilometer buffer zone between the Russian and Ukrainian front lines as part of a potential peace deal, Politico reported, citing 5 European diplomats. You already know that it's not Europe, there's some in Europe. This proposal is one of the several that European military and civilian officials are considering for a post-war or ceasefire scenario in Ukraine. How can you think about this when the Russians already said this? We will create a buffer zone between Russia and the guys over there, which is going to be demilitarized. That's what they said. And this guy said, no, you can't do that. Why? And the Russians said, if the guys on the other side will be provided with artillery that can strike, let's say, 100 kilometers, the buffer zone will be 100 kilometers. If that would increase to 120 kilometers, we're going to push the buffer zone 120 kilometers. I know it's one thing to talk about it, the other one to really successfully implement it and get to that buffer zone. People say, well, you're still in mud over there in Donbass. But hey, time will tell. My point is, the Russians enter Ukraine, one of the biggest reasons, right, was NATO troops. These countries that I will name here are all in NATO. So that means the Russians will lose if they accept, they fought for nothing if they allow these guys to jump in Ukraine. So here it is. And these guys are continuing to talk about it. However, it is unclear whether Kiev would accept the plan. That's true, as it would likely require territorial concessions. The US does not seem to be involved in the buffer zone discussions. That means it's already dead without being born. A partition would be fraught with historical significance. European diplomats have avoided likening it to the heavily guarded divide between North Korea and South Korea, who are technically still at war. Instead, they compare it to the division of Germany during the Cold War. Alright, and who do I have over there? Right there. The number of soldiers needed to patrol the border remains a concern. European officials are discussing deploying between 4,000 and 60,000 troops to patrol near the demilitarized zone and train Ukrainian troops. Now, these are the real fuckers. French and British forces will likely comprise the core of the foreign peacekeeping force. You got it? So from the get-go, it's going to be a strong niet. Let me show you how Ukrainska Pravda reports this one. European leaders. You remember, the other one was Europe. Now you have European leaders. European leaders discuss creation of 40-kilometer buffer zone in Ukraine. And the same thing is said here. And we have the same two countries, France and Great Britain. This is imbecilic, counterproductive, and the Americans are not even involved. The Russians will never accept that. They are at war partly because of that. 50% or 80%, I would say, of why the war in Ukraine occurred is because NATO troops were more to come into Ukraine. That was the root cause, as the Russians are claiming, which I think they claim it for a long time, about 30 years. in the making. All right, let's go to Zelensky's time. Russia Today. Zelensky claims Ukraine's security guarantees will be ready next week. Now, when he says security guarantees, he refers, or they refer to Western security guarantees, to these guys' guarantees again, European leaders. We know who the European leaders are, don't we? Moscow has said it opposes, and I'm quoting, one-sided options aimed solely at containing Russia. Zelensky has claimed that the complete framework of security guarantees for Kiev in case of a ceasefire or peace deal with Russia will be ready as early as next week. There has been a lot of talk about security guarantees. National security advisors are currently working on the development of each specific component, and next week the entire configuration will be on paper. Good. And then that would be issued and will be probably sent to the Russians if they still have a gram of intelligence. According to the Ukrainian leader, Erdogan involved his defense minister in the process to examine how Turkey can help guarantee security, including in the Black Sea. That's bad, because that means if Turkey allows, let's put it this way, let me see if I can go, yeah, I can go there. There's the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Strait, the straits. So they have, you have to, according I think to a Munich Convention, if I remember, or Montreux Convention, something 1770 something, where it says like this: in case of war in the Black Sea area, right here is the Black Sea, this is Europe, in the Black Sea area, in case of a war, the Turks, which have both sides right here on the western side and the eastern side on Europe, and in Asia, this is Bosphorus, this is Dardanelles, this is Sea of Marmara right here. So for the ships to travel from the Atlantic Ocean into the Mediterranean Sea right here through Gibraltar, which is British, mind you, but hey, the Russians are the, how do you call them, imperialists. They go here, go to the Aegean Sea right here, and then from the Aegean Sea, they go here through the Dardanelles, Bosphorus, and then you have Marmara Sea, and then you go into the Sea of Marmara, Black Sea. In order to come over here, if it's a war anywhere here, in this area, Turkey has the obligation to close the straits to military vessels. So that's why they talk about that, including the Turks, because they will say, well, there's no more here, war is peace, we will open it for the NATO military to come over here and patrol whatever. This is the whole point. NATO, not the Russians are already there, just so you know, obviously. All right, so let's see what's the next one, and the next one is coming from the Portuguese president, who claims that Trump is a Russian asset. I mean, is that libel? Is it what? Defamation? What is it? Defamation, I think it's verbal. Libel is in writing. So what is going on here? All right, let's see what the guy said. Russia Today, 29th of August. NATO states president claims Trump a quote-unquote Russian asset. Portugal, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa has echoed the Russiagate hoax. Portuguese president De Sousa has accused US President Donald Trump of only pretending to act as an impartial mediator. Well, he's not a mediator, you're right about that one. He's on the losing side. He's part of NATO, he is NATO, therefore they are losing in Ukraine. It's not impartial in the Ukraine conflict, while serving Moscow's interests and functioning as a Russian asset. Well, this guy is the same as these guys right here, who are discussing things, or like this imbecile right here, discussing things without Russia. They think, remember, Portugal was a country, is a country, but in the past it did a lot of things on this planet. Its glorious days of, I don't know, 17th century, 16th century, I don't know if they got to 18th century, they had a great fleet, they had money, and they went all over the world and colonized. And they transferred slaves and like many others. So, opa, what's going on, meow meow? Thank you very much for dropping by. So, they don't have a history of, mild, and it's okay. If you're strong, you're gonna show your strength, and with strength come crimes sometime. I don't want to say all the time because I'm on YouTube, but you know what I mean. So Portugal seems like, if you look over the how Portugal is a very small country. It's a very small country. It's always been a small country. All right, let me show you on the map. It's always been a small country, but it planned very well, and it was very strong and very rich at one point. Right here. That's why Brazil speaks Portuguese, not Spanish. Right here. This is Portugal. Now compare that with, I don't know, it's about the size of Austria, maybe a little bit bigger than Switzerland. So this is the big country of Portugal. And look, for instance, at Brazil, which is right there somewhere. All right. This is Brazil. I can show you more than that. This map doesn't show you the exact borders. Nevertheless, so they've been all over the place, the guys in Portugal. Therefore, they have, and they should have, a mentality of winners. You know what I mean? Okay. And this guy thinks that he can say certain things to other countries like Russia. Portugal has no nuclear weapons. Portugal has a shitty economy, let's put it mildly. Doesn't have a big economy. A military that could be blown into the Atlantic Ocean by the Russians if the Russian bear just sights. Portugal is gone. I know some people might be insulted, but hey, remember, objectivity. These are objective facts. Go and check them out, unless you think you're going to fight against Russia. So this guy tells that the American is not impartial. He can't be. He's not a mediator. He plays the role, but he's not. He can't be. He tries. Good for him. Now, he is a Russian asset. We would ask in the Western, what used to be Greco-Roman civilization, now we have the Judeo-Christian culture, where you don't need evidence. It's just, the burning bush and shit. We used to ask for evidence to support your claims. So I would like to see this guy's evidence. And his evidence is this. Because Trump is not going and tell Putin what to do, as an imperialist country would do, and a strong country, and he's tried to negotiate with this guy. That's called giving Russia concessions, making concessions to Russia. Because this person who's old, that means he still have the mentality of South of Africa. Remember, they did a lot of things in Africa as well. I don't have to go over that, but they know it. So they have the same mentality, this old guy, and which fine, he can have it, but he's delusional. And he's the president of the country. He thinks that Trump should walk in a room with Putin and say, I'm going to knock you out and you do what I'm telling you to do. I mean, if that's the president, he's an imbecile. Or he's a piece of shit. He's a smart guy who says certain things as a piece of shit, because you can't claim that. But anyway, he just did. That's fine with me. This is the evidence he says. The top leader of the world's, I'm quoting, greatest superpower is objectively, he says, a Soviet, and then, my bad, or Russian asset. Man, this guy is old. Hey, the Cold War supposedly ended sometime about 30 years ago. He functions as an asset. He said, okay, I'm looking for evidence. What is he saying? The Portuguese leader further claimed that Trump is less a genuine mediator than an arbiter who only negotiate with one of the teams, arguing that Kiev and its EU backers had to push their way in to take part in recent talks. Okay, well, if Trump is negotiate with only one of the teams, how about these guys, the Europeans? Who are they on whose payroll? I would like to know, because the European leaders, and then you have the security guarantees, they don't discuss this with the other side. Exactly what Mr. Portuguese guy claims. Negotiate with only one of the teams, not the other one. What about the Europeans? Okay, so that's the first one, and this is the second one. Portuguese president calls Trump a Russian asset. So, is he a Russian asset? No, these guys would have known about it a long time ago. Trump was searching his ass as well before he got to be the president of the United States of America. They know everything about Trump. When I say everything, I'm talking about the guys in charge of us. Right? And that's not the politicians, the elected officials to represent us. They know everything. And you can let certain people go as... You don't have to, you're an asset, we're going to put you in jail and that's it. You don't work like that in spying games. You don't just pick him up and that's it. You just making him be double. That's what you do. Double agent, which is actually you pretend to be still on the payroll, but you are actually on my payroll without the other guys knowing it. There you go. That's how it works. But he's an agent. If you, a 9-year-old guy, are able to figure that out and say it in public, that means it can't be so obvious. I mean, unless, I don't know, KGB and these guys drop the ball. And let me show you how the Europeans continue to push a button that is very dangerous. Why? I told you about the boxer who thinks he still has it. This comes from Ukrinform. European Union seeks to transfer nearly 200 billion euros, that's $210 billion or something, in frozen Russian assets, rubbed Russian assets to rebuild Ukraine. And my question is, who do you think is going to rebuild Ukraine? I'll tell you who. It's going to be the same profiteers that helped this war start and get going. Who are they? The guys who are going to be now elected and selected to rebuild, which is going to be big American corporations or multinational corporations. That's who's going to rebuild it. It's not going to be the Russians. That's a big opportunity. So we destroy first and then we come and rebuild it. And the bad guy is right there. No, he's not the bad guy. We got him in, he destroyed, we got him out, and we build, and then we claim he is the bad dude. But we orchestrated, I don't want to say everything, but it's obviously what they did. The European Commission is devising a scheme, that's exactly what it is, to transfer almost 200 billion euros in Russian immobilized. You see, these guys tried to find all kind of euphemism, immobilized, frozen. No, robbed, not stolen, to rebuild Ukraine at the end of the war. I want the Chinese companies to rebuild it. They're impartial. Well, I know, my friends from Zimbabwe, I want their companies to rebuild Ukraine, not the Westerners. Oh, no, because that's exactly why they want to rebuild Ukraine. All right. The official said Brussels is testing the appetite of national capitals for moving the assets into riskier investments that could generate more profits for Ukraine and amp up pressure on Russia. So these guys are going to put pressure on Russia and it refuses to stop the fighting. Yeah, okay. We are advancing the work on the Russian frozen assets to contribute to Ukraine's defense. So you see the first profiteers right there, defense and reconstruction. Good for you, my friends. Good for you. So the Europeans, as I said, they are lost in space or they follow a plan. Which one is it? The plan is obviously those guys want to get into Russia and subjugate Russia. And then after Russia, China, because if you take over Russia's natural resources, China is dead, India is dead, and you control a lot of things on this planet. Therefore, Russia is the last and the biggest rock in their achieving their global domination. Who? Not the Americans. The Americans are already taken over by the guys, So, not only, thank you very much, they are used. We are used. We are hamsters. We are those little mice on that little spinning wheel. Our energy, our work, our existence, our children, our consumption fuels their power, the military power, economic power, their blackmail, the financial blackmail, the blackmail on the world scale. But we are the ones that they use. If tomorrow the United States of America disappears, they have to take another host that they can use with NATO to implement their movements and their politicians and the MI6s and the CIAs and the Mossads and so on. They need us. And they make us, well, you're black, you're white, you don't have balls, you have a pussy, I identify as, and they have us fighting like baboons here with eating our fleas and fighting for each other's access to whomever's fleas to eat, while they are using us for the big scheme. That's what it is. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.